Hey sis, I kind of want to talk to you a little bit. I am by no means interested in being any sort of political kind of voice in this space, but there is something that's happening now with uh, our current administration versus who he was up against and what it means. And there is so much rhetoric around Kamala running and this reemergence of all of the conversation, the dialogue that she had. The black woman was right thing, right? And I don't think that anybody is more tired than us. More importantly, I think that we've kind of hit that final stage of grief, right? Where we're just way too tired and we've kind of accepted what is happening. But it's the what that I want to get into just a little bit. But before I continue in this conversation, this is just perspective. I'm going to school now and I'm kind of thinking through what psychology means to me. Where are the patterns? Where are the consistencies? And how do we navigate this space a little bit differently now that we know more? So I guess the best thing that I can say is this is an attempt to support each and every one of us in this spirit of strategy and diversification. And I say this with nothing but love and urgency. Reevaluate your assets, your things, and something that God whispered to me a few days ago was the seeds you plant today will be the fruit that you eat tomorrow. Be intentional about that, because I think for people like us, it's particularly important. But I'm gonna get back into this thing. What happened? And the what happened is so important to me because I believe it was Van Lathan who was on CNN one day and he said something along the lines of, oh, because Kamala had gone viral because all of her talking points from the campaign had reemerged, had gone viral, where she had overstated, understated, reiterated time and time again, over and over again, that this is what Trump was doing and it was going to look a certain way. And she was at a convention and having a conversation. Someone in the audience said something along the lines of, yeah, you told him. And she was like, I said I wasn't going to tell her. I wasn't going to say I told you so. And this clip went viral. And Van Lathan took this clip and went on CNN and said that he didn't appreciate that. Like, people are struggling, people are having a hard time. Why do you feel the need to make this kind of comment now? And the level of pissed me off that I felt at that moment was like, yo, is it not enough that we've established so much negative conversation around her that we've compromised her position or fortified her not being in position? Is not enough. But to date, even when she is absolutely correct, she still has to watch her mouth. And so this is the dynamic, this is the phenomenon that I wanted to kind of get into a little bit. And my hope is that I can do this strategically, empathetically, intellectually, respectfully, and clearly. All right? So one of the phenomenons, again, is the realization that people were willing to put him back inside of the house, even though the first time he was in the house, everyone kind of came to grips with understanding that he was not responsible for the economy and so on. And again, I want to shy away from the political standpoint so much because it's not just about that. the political standpoint is important because it affects each and every one of us. But it didn't go great the first go around. Because again, if it went as well as everybody kind of acted on this time around, he wouldn't have not been in office in 2020, right? Like, so for me, I think that it's reasonable to believe that there was a disconnect, that something went wrong. But now you have this emergence of Doge and all of these different things, and you have all of these people that have so much commentary about Kamala and what she did wrong, and the Democrats, what they did wrong. Again, we can go on forever about that, but why is it that we went back and he tapped into the rhetoric of immigrants and they jumped to it again? Even though they had farms and things like that that were run. We watched Florida in 2016 go through this same exact problem where it's like, Florida, like, your tourist attractions and everything dried up because you didn't have people to work because immigrants, or like, they're a part of your workforce. Why did you reabsorb this rhetoric after you survived the last incident? So again, just sitting with it, and of course the recurring conversation is, make America great again, or MAGA, is, make it racist, make it this, make it that. It's so much, again, of this dialogue about what America used to be. And again, the thing that I don't understand is that you guys are hurting too. So what is happening? And I'm watching, a bunch of people have conversation, a bunch of fuck around and find out videos and that sort of thing. Because of course, on some side of me, like, I need to have that moment of vindication, but I still need to digest this. I still need to intellectualize it. And at one point, while I was contemplating this, the thing that came to mind was, he will make your enemies your footstool, and vengeance belongs to God. And I'm like trying to check myself, because I'm like, Lord, I think I'm sitting here fully in my ego and being spiteful, right? Like, and wishing ill will, because we've been placed in this bad situation at the feet of racism, right? Like, and then that's what it feels like. That's what we process it as. We see it as, this is only happening because of anti-Blackness. And one of the things that I have been most appreciative of is our stage of grief being acceptance, right? Because a lot of us have forfeited and said, like, I'm not getting involved. Hence the type of the conversation is strategize and diversify. So in this space of just going back and forth with God about it, like, yo, like, what's that about? And it came to me in the simplest and craziest way. It was like, don't fight with your enemy about who's going to be the footstool. It's like, hold on, what? Like, and essentially getting into these tussles with people that are committed and making choices from a place that we don't understand, all we're doing is fighting for the bottom spot. And as we step away and step back, I think and I pay attention, and I'm like, yeah, what's crazy is that even if we are in the situation or circumstances or not, I said, Black, migrants, people of color, whatever you want to, minorities aside, if you pulled us out of this situation, they would do the exact same thing. So why is that? And then I started to think about the art of psychology that exists in racism. Recently, I learned about this psychologist, Ivan Pavlov. And I think a lot of people know about him. And short version of it is that he is the man that studied and theorized the art of conditioning. And, conditioning can be very familiar to, say, an athlete, where they're used to, like, I think Kendrick talked about it, running 6 miles a day, conditioning my win, I deserve it all. Like, we often refer to that like in a fitness space, right? Where it's like, you have to adjust your body. And one of the things that we don't pay attention to as much, or may not be as aware of as a collective, because I don't think that this is exclusive in any kind of way, like that it's never been talked about before, but I think that a lot of us missed the mark. Conditioning and his experiment, Pavlov, what he did was he did whistling with dogs. So he got a whistle, served it with food, so that every time it was time to eat, he would blow the whistle, food would come out. And what would happen is that over time, that when he blew the whistle, even if food was not coming, the dogs would start to salivate because they associated the sound of the whistle with the food. I was like, that's interesting. And then you have Erik Erikson's stages of development. And one of the stages of development is conformity. That you want to kind of figure out who you are. And a part of developing who you are, you're going to go through this conforming stage, which happens around the teenage years. And then you think about Abraham Maslow's needs for belonging. In his hierarchy of needs, one of them is the need to belong to something. Another interesting layer about psychology, and particularly with business, in marketing and in investments, commodities, and future markets, I learned about this thing called the herd effect, where if people see certain things, they tend to act in the same way. So they kind of follow, kind of similar to this conformity thing. And so when you take this conglomerate, you take these series of ideologies, these are studies of people. This is a part of our psychological experience. And then you take the concept of racism. I was watching a video one day and this white guy says, like with full fury and anger in his voice, he's like, why is it if I say I'm white and I'm proud, I'm racist? And I'm like, sir, why is that our responsibility to answer? When in all actuality, as a white person, you can divulge in what you are proud of, right? Because when we say we're black and we're proud, you know, my black and my proudness may come from my ability to overcome, right? It could be something like, man, you know, I actually went from being poor to being, you know, middle class. And I aspire to be impactful. I aspire to do amazing things, and hopefully I can inspire others, right? So my proud has something to be associated with. It's not just the color of my skin that I'm proud of. It's me having adversity and still being here nonetheless. Me being black is just a reality of my adversity, considering where I am in this present day. But of course, per usual, y'all got a problem. And people like us might dive in and fix it. So I thought about that a little bit deeper. And I go back to the rhetoric that 47 is giving, and he's saying a lot of stuff like, man, we're going to be number one. We're going to be the greatest. We're going to be, we're not going to lose to this person. We're not going to lose to that person. And nobody's going to beat us. And the immigrants aren't going to do this. And they're this sort of people and they're that sort of people. And I'm like, is that all we got? When I think about this whole conversation about bringing industrialization back into the States, I'm like, you know what's wild to me is that industrialization happened first. We started railroading and building factories and everything else. This is where Ford was born, right? Like, so all of that happened here. And you know what happened? I learned this in, 2004 with my 9th grade teacher. He taught us this thing called outsourcing. Because before AI, there was this reality that outsourcing was happening, that all of our easy jobs, all of these manufacturing jobs, are going across seas because wealthy people wanted their profit and they wanted to reasonably price the goods for us. And now the same wealthy people are making the argument that they're going to bring all of this stuff back. And I am watching people seethe at the so-called chess match that he's in. And I'm like, since when were y'all cool with working in fields and factories? But you know, if we go back to this ideal, this theory of conditioning, when you look at racism through the eyes of conditioning, it's not just about reasonable thinking. Because I also, and I'm gonna be candid here, I did think for a long time that in order to be racist, that you had to be intellectually deficient to some extent, because it just doesn't make sense. I was like, y'all, we're way too grown, we're way too old to still believe in the stereotyping and the moving forward with the stereotyping and discriminatory practices based on color and background and so on. Are you going to proceed with caution with some people that might not necessarily be familiar to you and things? But that's not exclusive to skin color, right? Like, I thought we were past that. But what I didn't think about was the significance of, this is probably going to be a tough one. The significance of a particular group of people's pride being exclusively, I'm better than you. And as I sat with that a little bit more, I'm like, yes, they've been in this business of, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I have more than you. Like, when you look at capitalism, right? Like, the reason that they scream about free Medicaid and all of these things is because we don't want to be communists, because we don't want people to all be the same. I'm like, this is tough, because at the same time, it is broke people that have this argument. It's the people that are losing their farms that voted for this. It's the people that can't afford their insurance. It's people that's getting government assistance. That's like, we don't need to be giving out no free money. Sir, ma'am, you are struggling. Why are you like this? But there is a thing that happened with them. Their belonging is with a group that they don't actually belong to. They have quite literally been conditioned to be comfortable and enamored by genetic proximity. And this is what gets them by. And they look at their life, and when it's bad, and when they're struggling, and when millionaires don't pay taxes, and them not paying taxes is the reason that we have, say, a trade deficit. I'm sorry, that's not why we have a trade deficit. I'm being an asshole. This is a part of why we have debt, though, because you have individuals operating as entities that's literally vacuum sealing wealth. But they're not like us, right? Like, and so because of that, them not being able to afford eggs somehow is different, or better yet, it's somebody else's fault. This is conditioning, because what happened is that in light of this, I'm realizing, I'm like, yo, it wasn't just uneducated or undereducated people that voted for him. There are people that voted to their own detriment. Now, here's the thing about conditioning. When things get a little effed up, when things aren't going so well, conditioning can be brought to what we call extinction, where there are instances that the dog would not respond with salivation if you train them off of this whistle food sort of thing. So if you whistle enough time and you don't bring the food, eventually the dog stops believing in the whistle. And so when you stop whistling, you've broken the conditioning. Only partially, though, because just like any other form of conditioning, once they blow that whistle again, sometimes the old memories creep back. And so in the face, and I think about the strategy, he came out and he talked about how terrible people's lives are. And they even overestimated their own detriment, because you have the people like Adam Ross and fucking Dave Portnoy who had 8 figures of retirement to lose, that endorsed a guy that spoke to a bad economy that they weren't actually living in. Is that not wild? And if you think about that, you can't be a dummy and have $20 million to lose, but you can be conditioned to believe that you are better than a certain group of people. And in essence, those people's problems are not your problems because you're different, and don't let you have something like money. That's how come you got small business owners that's like, oh man, I didn't think that this would happen, because they're not looking at what they've been conditioned to do. They are in the invisible chains of racism too, and they don't realize that they are in part paying the debt for rich folks. They are still eating up the notion that people like us are the problem. And so the phenomenon in this whole thing is that, think about, you've been told your whole life that this group of people, they ain't shit. They ain't no good. They ain't gonna go nowhere. They can't do this. They can't do that. Imagine those group of people making it to campaign races. Imagine, you see how upset they got when President Barack Obama took office, and they couldn't believe it, even though he was the best thing that happened to the economy at that time. They can't believe it because they have been conditioned to believe that we are not equipped to do these sort of things. And so this becomes an issue, not just about black and white and so on and so forth. It becomes a thing of, they aren't even looking at color in the same way. Because if you take each and every one of us out of the equation, once upon a time, they didn't like Italians. They didn't like the Irish, because they have learned, they have been conditioned to blame someone else when things are going badly. So here we are. And so what Mrs. Kamala Harris represented was not only the perseverance of a people, she also represented the opportunity that would level the playing ground. And now, certain groups of people don't have a less than, an inferior to compare to, so that they can feel better, which is why immediately after DEI was denounced and removed and all these other things, you know, they start tearing down our plaques and what we've done and how much we've accomplished and what we stand for, and our credentials are discounted. And that's funny, but I thought we weren't qualified. And immediately you hire your friends. But you know, Sigmund Freud also talked about deflection. So that's an old concept that's been around for a long time. So hear me clear. I think it's so much more important to know and recognize your enemy. An enemy is a strong word. I say enemy because they are serving as an adversary. This is the uncomfortable reality of folks that don't realize they are in an abusive relationship, and they'll take you with them. This election is quite literally the perfect definition of, if you dig a hole for somebody, dig two so that you got one for yourself. This is the nature of arguing with your enemies about who's going to be the footstool. So I say again, please waste no time trying to make sense, trying to give context, color, value, anything to a situation or a circumstance where all the researcher got to do is come out and blow the whistle, and they'll go back to salivating out of the mouth. We are in a very interesting time, and it has revealed so much to me about what it is to exist and experience Black womanhood. And now it's not about fighting. Now it's about strategy. Now it's about diversification. Now it's about recognizing what seeds you want to plant so that you have your fruit for tomorrow. So, this one was long. I hope it was good. And I would love to come back and talk about this a bit more, because I got another point that I want to talk about. Shit. Damn it. We'll come back to it. Talk to you later.